Welcome back to Work Past the Record, the podcast where we have honest conversations about employment, second chances, rebuilding lives, and creating opportunities beyond a criminal record. I'm your host, Lori, and today we're continuing a conversation that started in my last episode, starting over with nothing, rebuilding after incarceration. In that episode, we talked about what it feels like to walk out with little more than a bag of belongings and a hope that somehow things will work out. But today, we're talking about what comes next. We're talking about the first 90 days, the days after release that nobody really prepares you for, the days when the excitement fades, reality sets in, and you're expected to rebuild an entire life from scratch. For many people, the first 90 days are the hardest part of reentry. Not because they're incapable, not because they don't want better, but because they're trying to solve 10 major problems in life all at once: housing, transportation, employment, identification, finances, relationships, mental health, probation requirements, technology, and often all of it while carrying the weight of a criminal record. Today, we're going to talk about what those first 90 days really look like and why surviving them is a victory in itself. Let's start with something that doesn't get discussed enough: the emotional side of reentry. Most people imagine release day as pure happiness. And yes, there is excitement, there's relief, there's freedom, there's hope. But for many people, there's also fear. When you've spent months or years in a structured environment, suddenly having unlimited choices can feel overwhelming. What do I do first? Where do I go? Who can I trust? How do I catch up with a world that moved on without me? And simple decisions can become exhausting. Even things like choosing what to eat, figuring out transportation, or navigating a smartphone can create stress. Many people experience what feels like culture shock. Technology changes, employers change, housing markets change, entire communities change, and suddenly you're expected to know how everything works. Then there are the relationships. Some family members are supportive, others may be skeptical. Some friends have moved on, others may still be stuck in the same pattern that led to trouble in the first place. The reality is that release day isn't the finish line, it's the starting line. And starting over can be emotionally exhausting. I get people that do 15, 20, 30 years in prison and they get released now, and they went in the 90s when cell phones were barely a thought. They were the cell phones that were flip phones. They were the ones with, the long antennas. Some of them went in when it was a bag phone that only the rich could afford, and pagers. And they were still using payphones to call people, or a house phone. So they don't know technology. You give them this iPhone and they're like, what the heck do I do with this? Employers, maybe they want to go back to an old employer and they find out that employer sold a long time ago or went out of business because maybe it was a small hardware store or something. And now we have these Lowe's and we have Home Depot and we have Walmart. Maybe those stores are gone. What if they worked in a mill or a factory and those jobs have since moved out of the country where they can operate at cheaper cost? Communities change. They may have left and there was 3 farms on the side of their houses, and now they come back and there's 4 developments on the side of their house. Housing markets change, like we said, so maybe when they went in, their rent was $450 a month, and now it's $1,600, and that's being generous. We take for granted, we just out here, we roll with change, we see it happen, we expect it. But someone that's been incarcerated and in those 4 walls, they don't see it. They don't see the progression. They don't know what's going on in the outside world for sure. So they come out to a world that they expect to find from when they went in, and it's not there anymore. Doesn't exist anymore. And then the family members, some are skeptical because maybe the person has been in and out of jail their entire life and they're thinking this is just another, when does the other shoe drop, and they go back in. So, they come out with not much support. So it is a starting line. It's the starting line, and starting over can be emotionally exhausting, as I said, and we're going to discuss that. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing they need to have everything figured out immediately. Before you can build a career, you need stability. The truth is, the first stage of reentry is survival. Before you can pursue long term goals, you need the basics. You need identification, as we talked about in the last episode. You need transportation, you need food, you need somewhere safe to sleep, and you need to understand your obligations and appointments. Many people become frustrated because they're comparing their current situation to where they want to be. But that's not a fair comparison. Success mode comes later. Survival mode comes first. The challenge is not getting stuck there. The goal is to gradually move from surviving day to day into building a future. And that shift takes time, much more time than people realize. Let's talk about jobs. Because for many people, employment is both the biggest goal and the biggest obstacle. The reality of job searching after incarceration can be discouraging. You fill out applications, you submit resumes, you attend interviews. Sometimes you hear nothing back. Sometimes employers seem interested until they learn about your record. Sometimes you get rejected for reasons you'll never know. It can feel personal, but often it's not. It's simply part of a difficult process. The important thing is remembering that rejection is not proof that you're unemployable. It's proof that you're applying and that you're trying. Every application submitted is progress. Every interview completed is experience. Every connection made is an opportunity. The first job after incarceration may not be your dream job. It may not even be a good job. But sometimes the first job isn't about fulfillment, it's about momentum. It's about proving reliability. It's about creating a recent work history. It's about opening doors that weren't available before. Too many people quit because the first opportunity doesn't look like the final destination. But rebuilding isn't about one perfect opportunity. It's about stacking opportunities until they create a better future. You can't walk out of incarceration and think that automatically you are going to get a job that pays so well that you will be on financial easy street immediately. Sometimes that's not the reality. You may have taken a bunch of classes while you were incarcerated. You may have a bunch of certifications, and you may land a really good job. But the reality is, you may not. So, being frustrated with the menial job or the less expected job isn't a reason to quit. It's a reason to tell yourself, this is an opportunity. This is going to close my employment gap on my resume. This is going to be where I get my experience and prove myself to an employer. Not every job that is entry level and pays low is where you're going to stay forever. There is growth opportunity. You being reliable, showing up, being productive, that's what gets you ahead. But it also gives you a very good professional reference for when you do find the next position that you want to move on to or try to apply for. Every job builds experience. Every job gives you a little boost of motivation towards your next goal, your next step. We talk about that in almost every episode. Your final destination is not always what your first opportunity looks like. You just need a job. So you will take the job that gets offered to you because one, they're not telling you no because of your background. Two, they're not telling you no because you don't have the experience. Three, it's an opportunity. It's a way to make money. It's a way to be self-sustainable. It's a way to build your skill set and make you more valuable to the next employer. That's what you have to look at, and that's how you have to look at things. One thing prison provides is structure. You may not like that structure, but it exists. What's the structure when you're in prison? You wake up, meals, work assignments, count times. schedules, everything is planned. Then suddenly you're released. Nobody tells you when to wake up. Nobody tells you where to be. Nobody tells you how to spend your time. And freedom without structure can become dangerous. This is why routines matter. A routine doesn't have to be complicated. Wake up at the same time, apply for jobs, attend appointments, exercise, prepare meals, get enough sleep. The goal is creating consistency because consistency creates momentum, and momentum creates progress. The people who succeed in reentry aren't always the most talented. Often, they're simply the most consistent. So I have a gentleman who I'm bringing into my program who just recently was released from prison. He told me that he sets his alarm every morning for 6 a.m. He doesn't need to be up at 6 a.m., but he sets it for 6 a.m. And he gets up and he goes and makes his coffee. And while his coffee is brewing, he showers and gets dressed as though he's going to work for the day, drinks his coffee, and then he goes out and he will rake the yard or he will take a walk. And he will do that and be out of the house for at least 1 to 2 hours so that he gets into a routine of, I'm going to be away from the house and this is what I need to do. So when he does start work, he does not have to worry about how am I going to get up in the morning? I need to have a routine. He has set his own routine. That was one of the most brilliant ideas or plans that I have heard from anybody that I have ever interviewed or worked with in any of the programs I have been in. Having a routine and getting yourself ready as though you are going to work, even when you're not, makes it so much easier when you do have to go to work to get up and get ready and have this routine. Think about that. How many of us without a criminal record and no history of incarceration don't even have a routine? We may get up at the same time every morning. I get up at 7 a.m. and I make the coffee and then I drink the coffee and I hang out until I know it's time for me to leave to go to work, which is fine. And that's my routine and that's how I work it. I feed my dog, I take her out. I have that all worked into my morning routine, Monday through Friday. But then on Saturday, maybe I want to sleep in. Maybe I don't want to get dressed right away. These are all things that we take for granted that someone that's been incarcerated can't because somebody's always told them, like, this is what time you have to be up. This is what time breakfast is. Okay, now we're doing count. Now you're going to maybe an AA group, or you're going to a class, or you're going to the gym because it's your time out, or the yard, whatever. Okay, now you're going to go clean. Now you're going to your cell. You can read, play cards, whatever, but you're going to your cell now. Somebody's always constantly telling them, this is what you need to do. This is what the schedule is. You can't deviate from it. If you do, you get in trouble. Imagine dealing with that for any length of time and being in that routine, and now you're free and you can do whatever you want. Well, yeah, it can cause problems because now there is absolutely zero structure. So you may get, "Oh, I'm going to sleep in because I've not been able to sleep in for however long I was in prison or jail." They're sleeping in, but that makes them less productive on the other side. Now they're not filling out the applications. Now they're not doing follow-up calls to where they have applied. They're not ready to work. And we talked about, are you ready to work? A few episodes back, maybe like 2 episodes back. Being ready is being consistent. And that is showing progress. So, yeah, the most successful people in a reentry situation are the ones that are consistent. So that man that's getting up every morning at 6 a.m. and making his coffee and showering and getting dressed and then going out and working in the yard or taking a walk, going to the store, coming back, going to his meeting, coming back. He's the guy that's going to be successful when he starts working because he has built his own routine. Everybody needs to build a routine. If you don't have a routine, I suggest you start tomorrow by building a routine. That's what's going to make you successful. That is what is going to set you apart from other applicants. Now let's talk about money because reality hits fast. Many people leave incarceration with little or no savings. Then come the expenses: transportation, housing, food, phone bills, clothing, work supplies, court costs, probation fees, medical expenses. The list keeps growing. Then comes the first paycheck, and many people are shocked. After taxes and deductions, the paycheck doesn't stretch nearly as far as expected. This is where budgeting becomes critical, not because budgeting is exciting, but because every dollar suddenly matters. Learning to manage money is one of the most important skills in rebuilding, not because it makes you rich, but because it helps create stability, and stability creates options. So you should sit down with a notebook and write out all your bills for the month. Let's say you just got a phone and it's $30 a month. You're going to write that in. How much are your medications a month? If you're on medications, maybe you're diabetic and you have to pay for insulin. You're going to write that down. How much is your housing? Even if you're living with a family member and you're expected to pay rent, if it's $300 a month, that's $75 a week you need to put aside for rent. What if you have utilities to pay? How much food do you eat in a week that you need to budget for? Sitting down and adding all those up, even if you wanted to do it weekly, you could. Monthly's better. Now you know out of your check, after taxes, this is the money that has to go first for all my bills, and this is what I have left over. I have a gentleman who, out of every check, he takes a certain amount and he has it put into his savings account automatically so he doesn't see it. And granted, when he started, he wasn't making a lot, but he put that money in. So when it was time for him to move out of the transition house he was in, he had a good chunk of change put aside that could help him with a security deposit and a first month rent. It could help him with getting a little bit of furniture so that he wasn't moving with nothing. That is a good budgeting plan, and he's a young man. You have to have a budget if you want to have options. You don't want to always live with family or at a friend's or in a transitional house. You want to be able to have your own space, your own place, something that you've worked for, something you can be proud of. Hey, this is my first apartment. That's what you want to do. Plan how much money do I need to set aside every week after bills so that when the time comes and I have an apartment to go to, I have the money to be able to move in. Budgeting is really important. A lot of times people to get that first paycheck and they want to blow it on everything. They go and buy clothes they don't need. They go out to dinner every night. You can't do that. You can't be getting takeout every night. Go to the grocery store, get a week's worth of groceries, and be able to cook for yourself. Imagine being able to cook in your own kitchen anything you feel like eating instead of having to eat what an institution tells you you're eating for the night. People get joy just out of being able to do that. So budgeting, we will go over budgeting, financial literacy at some point and why it's so important and actually how to do it. One of the hardest parts of reentry is feeling like nobody understands what you're experiencing. People see freedom, they don't always see the challenges. And that's what we spoke about in the last episode. They don't see the applications that never receive responses. They don't see the anxiety before interviews. They don't see the constant effort required to stay on track. Sometimes family expects immediate success. Sometimes society expects perfection. Sometimes people continue defining you by your worst mistake. That can be exhausting, but here's the truth. You don't need everyone to understand your journey. You need a few people who support it, whether that's family, mentors, employers, support groups, faith communities, or trusted friends. Surrounding yourself with people who believe in your future can make the difference. We've spoken in almost every episode about how some people will still attach you to your past and not see who you've become. That can be very detrimental to somebody that's just coming into reentry. They don't want to be seen for who they were. They want to be seen for who they are. It shouldn't matter what anybody thinks. Find the people that believe in you. Maybe it is a church group. You meet some friends, now they become your support system. Maybe it is a few family members. You may end up getting the job where people support you and they encourage you and they have your best interest at heart. What you can't do is go back to where you were. Growth is important and believing in yourself is really important. We talked about the challenges of being able to try to get your identification when you have nothing to prove who you are and not having the money to get that birth certificate or get the ID that you need. And you need all that for employment. Society doesn't see that end of things. I wish they could all go through a reentry simulation just to understand the real struggles that follow a person coming back into society. One of the biggest lessons in reentry is learning to celebrate for small victories because rebuilding doesn't happen overnight. Success comes in pieces: getting an ID, opening a bank account, making it to every appointment. And I mean probation appointments, medical appointments, interviews, landing an interview, receiving a job offer, completing a month of employment, saving money, paying a bill on time. These may sound like small things, but they're not. They're building blocks. Every small victory creates confidence. Every small victory proves progress. And enough small victories eventually become a completely different life. Whenever you accomplish one of these little tasks, celebrate that. Be excited about it. Tell those people that are supporting you, hey, I had a really good interview today. I'm very hopeful for this job to come through. And then when you receive that offer letter, you tell those same people, I got an offer letter. I'm so excited about it. Be excited about those things. You get the job. Complete the first month. You made it 30 days in a job. Even if it's not your dream job, you made it 30 days. How much money did you save in that 30 days? Celebrate that. Those are all small victories. And they add up. That's going to be part of your new life. As we close today's episode, I want to talk about perspective. Too many people measure success by how far they still have to go. Instead, measure success by how far you've come. Maybe you're not where you want to be. Most people aren't. But are you moving forward, or are you still stuck behind? Are you making better decisions, or are you reverting back to your old life? Are you staying committed to your goals? Or are you giving up? Are you building a foundation? Because that's what matters. Reentry isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. The people who succeed aren't necessarily the people who never struggle. They're the people who keep going despite the struggle. They never give up. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Work Past the Record. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with someone who may be navigating reentry, rebuilding after incarceration, or working to create a better future despite past mistakes. And remember this: your past may explain your story, but it does not have to define your future. The first 90 days aren't about proving yourself to everyone else. They're about proving to yourself that you can keep moving forward. One application, one paycheck, one decision, one day at a time. Until next time, keep working past the record. Bye.